Hello and hello. I am happy to be here again with Garry at Beyond Hegemony, previously Hegemony Revealed. We decided to do a branding change to fit what we want to put out in the universe and the type of energy that we want to create collectively. And so we also are going to give ourselves a little bit of structure, and we have come up with some pillars on how we're going to discuss these post hegemonic concepts and ideas that we have for the future for the world. And Garry, do you want to introduce those pillars to our audience? Good to see you, by the way.
Likewise, wonderful to be with you, and we're sending lots of love and energy to Sahana, who's taking a break for a few weeks. So lots of love to you, Sahana. You'll just hear a little click as I pop onto the Google Sheet, because I just want to make sure I'm communicating clearly. So everybody, what we're talking. So today we're starting, and Trina's written a beautiful article that's going to lead us through today's session around mental health and mindset. That's today, the 7th of February. On Monday, the 19th, we're going to do a follow-on around the topic of mental health and mindset. And then each month afterwards, we're going to follow a different theme. So it could be a theme around geopolitics or systemic. It could be environmental or climatic. Could be around leadership. Could be technology. Could be media and information. But between Sahana, Trina, and myself, we believed on reflection that those are the 6 key pillars that we want to try and imagine beyond the current paradigms that we all know are collapsing. So yeah, it's exciting times, Trina.
Yeah, collapsing, and I say that in the most compassionate way whatsoever. And so today we thought, because the way that we think, our mindset, our mentality towards each other, ourselves, each other, how we self-care, how we care for others, is reflective on how all of those other pillars show up in our life. You know, I feel like if we focus on our mental health in a very conscious way, in a very compassionate way, no beating ourselves up, but really just seeing what is in ourselves and others, then we can build those pillars. And I think we mentioned in a conversation, geopolitical can go away altogether, honestly, because I don't think that it would be a part of my post hegemonic reality, politics, and how they operate now can just, it will naturally just fall away if we have our mental health right.
It's such a brilliant insight that you shared there, though, Trina, as well, right? Because when you think about just how much of our energy and how much of the pain comes directly from that particular lens of hegemony, like, to imagine beyond that alone is just a beautiful exercise.
Yeah, just being would be great. And so, like Garry mentioned, I wrote an article for Medium. You can't see it because of the background noise. It's called "The Harmony of Mind, Body, and Spirit: Unlocking the Interconnectedness of Existence." And as a cognitive behavioral coach and emotional intelligence coach, what I do is I try to align mind, body, spirit with all my clients. And I try to walk that path for myself. And because mind is sort of the architect of perception, so the mind has like a boundless capacity for thought, perception, and it creates our reality in so many ways. So it's like our beliefs, our attitudes, our interpretations. We shape our world through these views. And if you have like a negative mindset, and it's steeped in pessimism and doubt and anger, it not only clouds your perception, but it taints the collective consciousness. You know how it is when you walk into a party and everything is vibing and everybody's happy, and that one person brings in their energy and they're like, ugh. And it just kind of changes the energy of the entire room in the party. And it's usually totally subconscious. That person doesn't know that their bad day is affecting everything else. And I don't want to, also, I want to explain the word negative, because there's a really, I think, unhealthy ideal around negativity, as in don't worry, be happy type of mentality. And I call that's sort of on the toxic positivity that I don't think actually has helped us. I think negativity is the purposeful introduction of anger, purposeful, like let's disrupt, like changing 432 hertz to 444 in music. When you know it disrupts and takes and creates disharmony. That's what I think of negativity. And I'm not sure, I could talk about all kinds of ways I think that is seeded in our culture to create a certain reaction out of humanity. And also wars, I think, is a purposeful negative seed that's planted just for control. And so, that's one of the aspects, mind. And what do you think, Garry?
Yeah, it's a massively important, because again, from within that sector, as you know, I have spend a lot of my time within the extractive industries, and it's almost literally polar opposite right now. What we're seeing, the post-hegemonic worlds, plural, are going to come from that place you're describing, which is a more abundant, higher vibration, more connected, more vulnerable, more collective approach. And that, without a doubt, is what these post-hegemonic worlds look like. And it is very much the antithesis, Trina, of where people are in fear at the moment. It's a very individualized, hyper-individualized fear is what I observe in a lot of these contexts. It's really beautiful that you're signposting people on that journey. I think it's beautiful.
Yeah. And because it's the reason why I focus on the mind, body, spirit is because it's all interconnected. What you're doing in your realm connects us in our bodies, because there's the aspect of toxic pollution, right? So, when I talk about the body, I'm talking about the temple of our physical experience, how our bodies interact to our reality causes so much disruption in your health, what we eat, what we consume, it's like these imbalances, just the fact that most of our food is tainted with preservatives, and especially in the United States. Europe has better rules around food, believe it or not.
Just about.
Just about. I mean, if you look at an ingredients list on an American product versus that same product in Europe, it's going to shrink down to that. And what does that tell you?
It's really interesting. Did you see that example of the Fanta Orange recently? It showed Fanta Orange in Europe was literally orange. And it showed the Fanta Orange in the US was literally this vibrant, toxic, out of this world orange color. You could see the difference visually between the two. So yeah, really interesting. Really interesting.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that I really press upon my clients is that you stop eating processed food. Stop. If it comes in the box, don't buy it. And that right there is a major disruption of hegemonic forces. If we stop buying their products that make us sick, like literally make us sick. I just read about a preservative that's been used for decades that disrupts the gut biome. And, we don't know. I mean, it wasn't until what was it? Maybe 15 years ago, 20 years ago, that I started to really look at labels. I don't know about you. If it tasted good, okay. What's this powdery stuff, you know? Yeah, that could easily be wood saw. Oh, lovely. That's a preservative. Anti-caking, they call it. But my point is that most of us are not even taking that in, because there's just part of us in our spirit that hopes those, big daddy hegemony wouldn't be poisoning his children. That's the hope. That's the internal guiding spirit that we all have. That why would you go out and harm someone that, is looking up to you, that's looking for your guidance and care? But when it comes to capitalism, it actually is an intrinsic part of the machine. Mm-hmm.
So much to say about that, but I think we'll come to that capitalism, I think, on another occasion, maybe.
Oh, it's all integrated. You know what I mean? It's all integrated. Yeah.
And I think actually linked to mental health, it's actually a very good point, because particularly, again, look at my lens in the workplace, the big corporate workplace. There's a hell of a lot of self-worth wrapped up in the job. And one of the questions I like to ask, particularly white men, when they are on the occasion they welcome it, is who are you without your work? And it's a very potent question, Trina, because often they don't have an answer. It's because they're wrapped up in the hedge. They cannot see the forces that have conditioned them to give away their power since almost age 3,
Absolutely. They don't even think about it until when you pose that question, who are you without your career? Who are you without your, the symbols of success? They don't know what to say because they're so deeply disconnected. So, that mind-body connection really underscores the profound influence of mental well-being and physical health. People are having heart attacks. People are deeply depressed because they're not seeing that connection. So, and then the last element is spirit, and that's like, for me, the essence of transcendence, being able to see yourself within and outside of the matrix of this current reality, and to kind of just know that you have the ability, just like your mind can perceive, you have the ability to manifest. You have the ability to brighten a day, lighten a day of someone, including yourself, of course. So, a lot of people don't understand the concept of spirit, and it immediately goes to either to religion most of the time, which is a very concrete hegemonic tool. Yeah. So sometimes when I write, I just get into a flow of like, I don't really know what I'm writing. I call it downloads. I just am kind of downloading in spirit what I feel like people need to hear, because I do believe there is something greater, and it just happens to reside in you, not outside of you.
And that, I just want to capture that moment you just shared again. That resides inside you. Like, I cannot explain. That's been my last 10 years' work. It's been unlearning the hegemonic forces, realizing, excuse me, with guidance, with support from someone like a Trina, whoever that needs to be for you. Like, don't do this work on your own is my invitation. A post-hegemonic world's possibility, it's so expansive on the other side of our fears, right? Like, I described this, Trina, about 1.5 years ago. On the outside, the world looks very similar. Has done for the last 47 years I've been on the planet. Yeah, give or take a few major issues, few wars, few massive climate catastrophes, but generally my world, very privileged, has looked pretty similar on the outside.
Right.
Internally, I feel like I'm 100x, if not 1000x, in terms of capacity. Just in terms of space to think, to innovate, to be creative, to connect with myself and others. And I think that for me is the spirit. That for me is really the spirit opening up somehow.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's beautiful. That's beautiful that you've gotten to that place. So many people, it's funny, you highlighted on a bit of what I wrote, amidst the chaos and discord of the world, the answers to our deepest yearnings lie within. They do. It never was outside of you. But the hegemonic forces always create a sense of unease outside of you. So you think it must be me. I mean, there's systems in place to absolutely make you feel horrible about yourself. Absolutely make you feel horrible about yourself. And I say those are just projections of hegemony or hegemony, depending on what country you're in, forces. They're the projection of self-hate, of lack and scarcity, fear, um, um, power hungriness, and when you start to really like cultivate the self-care aspect, all of that just kind of falls away. It just, it's there, you see it, but it's almost like you create a force field around yourself. Like literally it is a force field. It's energy, people call it auras, people call it, different things in different countries, but your prana, I wish Sahana was here. She understands prana. That's part of Indian Hindu culture. It just really just says, back up. Nope. And the more we start to really internalize that power and stop looking for validation outside of ourselves, whether it's a romantic relationship, work, a job is just an exchange for resources that we currently just need, because we're working on this process of taking away the capitalistic model and getting back to I think, our Aboriginal, our ancestral way of interacting. Have you ever heard of the concept of usury?
Usury, no.
Okay, so I with all this is happening with Israel and even with Congo, I started deep diving and I wanted to understand this history behind how did Jewish people get in charge of so much banking power, and they basically run all the banks, and how the United States is ran is on that, the the debit and credit system, the loans with interest. So in Christianity, I'm not a Christian, just I don't buy into religion in that way, but I'm not judging if you do, but there's a concept called usury. So basically Christians are not allowed to give loans to each other. And it's against the scripture doctrines. Okay. It's either give it or give it away freely, but you can't give it away and charge interest. So when the world was growing to what it is now, Jews were a part of the piece of that puzzle. They would come in and say, okay, you can't borrow money from your Christian brethren, but you can borrow it from me, and you charge interest. And what happened was that usually disrupted the economies of these different countries. Hence the reason why Jews were constantly kicked out of every country by the ruling class, by the kings. And so this is the, I really think this explains the nomadic nature, whether it's from religious doctrine or not, the reasoning. But they would find, of course, that be threatening to the kingdoms. So what'll happen is that the people would end up, getting themselves, just like a kid with a credit card. You start getting yourself in trouble when you think you got free money, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when it's time to pay up, you don't have a way to pay up. It's instant gratification worth basic, instead of, hold up, maybe I don't need that. So,
Oh my God, Trina, I watched an amazing live stream last night, very much aligned with what you just shared. And it was a Palestinian woman and man and an Israeli man, all from the Peace Corps over in Palestine. And one of the resounding things that hit me in the heart, you just described. And the lady said, please, please, please stop wanting things. Please just keep coming from that place when you need something. Sure. But please, please stop wanting things, because the more you want, the more advertising gets you, and the more you feed this capitalist system. You don't need hardly anything. Sorry, you don't want for anything. There's some things you need, but you don't want for a single thing. And it was a really beautiful moment, and it really aligned with what you just shared.
It's so true. The whole premise behind capitalism is to basically trick people into thinking they need things that they really don't need. Because it fuels the machine. It keeps the economy going. Hey, don't you want this new car? Don't you want this shiny this? And I will say, as a Black woman in a Black community, we are probably the biggest economy in the United States, because we stupidly, due to centuries of trauma and abuse, validate ourselves outside of ourselves. And we're pushed into that because the outside world says, well, you're carrying a Louis Vuitton bag. That means you have some money. That means you must be okay. And I use it as a shield, So Gucci, all these, but all we're doing is we're making the same people who oppress us richer.
Capture that quote. Capture that quote.
Yeah, that's all we're doing. And it's crazy, because one of the first things that hegemony took from us was self-sufficiency.
And this is being very vulnerable. This is so much of my work still, is really getting back to that. When it comes to mindset, coming back again to the topic of today, is that self-sufficiency, is really going, how can I be more self-sufficient? How do I unplug? Yeah. When do I really need something? Okay. I don't need the next upgrade of the phone. I don't actually have to go 3 times to that place on holiday. No judgment again of anybody. You do what you want to do, live your life. But the point is that realization that Trina just shared, that actually the damage, the wars we see around the world, the extraction we see in the global south, it is directly linked to our obsession, our addiction to having more. Cut the addiction to more, war will almost stop pretty quickly, because there'll be nothing to fight over. They'll find something, but you know what I mean? The majority of this stuff will just fall away.
Yeah, we don't need half the shit that is being, we don't need it. We need a roof over our head, and it doesn't need to be the most luxurious. It can be comfortable to you. You don't need to impress the Joneses, but it doesn't have to be a palace. You don't have to look to the king and the queen for your baseline of comfort. Usually less is more. a minimalistic lifestyle, I wrote an article about that too, usually gives more peace of mind, body, spirit alignment. Because if you're not trying to work to death to pay for things that you really don't need, you don't have to work so much. Garry, nobody hears what you're doing on the podcast.
It's a mic
Sound
drop.
effects.
It's a mic drop. Thank you, Trina. Good point. I forgot it was going to the podcast as well.
Garry, speak. Boom, boom. Sound effects.
And I also think I want to honor this moment as well. We can still have fun and laugh whilst all this stuff, this wild change is happening, right? Such an
We
important
must.
point, because I struggle at times with finding the joy in all this wildness. But thank you for modeling that as well, right? We can still laugh at this wild time.
Yeah, listen, here's the thing. There must be a balance. There must be a transformation of the energy. And we do that by reminding ourselves that there's the other side. I'm not totally enjoy that this is happening in Palestine or Congo or anywhere else where these hegemonic forces are oppressing people for no reason, just to generate a certain energy, to feed off. I feel like they're like entities feeding off of this negativity. And the best way we can combat that is to do the opposite with reverence to those who are struggling. Reverence. That's a word to say, I see you. I recognize you. I send love to you. I send peace to you. Thank you for lifting me up and making me have gratitude that I'm not there. Everything has a reason, a cause and effect. And we can take the effect or the cause and take it to a deeper, darker place where they want us to be, or we can say no. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. And I'm not saying we need to go out and have festivals and parties. I know that's still happening. And I know a lot of people are not feeling in that way, but you have to find some type of joy every single day to combat that imposed depression. The field of psychology loves this word depression. They capitalize on it. They make drugs for it. They do this. And it's, if we had clean and healthy fruits and vegetables, we wouldn't have so much depression. If we weren't pushed to work ridiculous hours outside of our biology, we wouldn't have depression. Depression to me is oppression. They're synonymous. And I have a three R's, I say, what depression really is. The need for rest, the need to reassess, and the need to realign. Mind, body, spirit.
I just want to say, if you're listening or watching back now, you're getting a lot of value for free from this amazing Trina Casey today. Like, this is, because the thing, I think I say that with sincerity and love, because like, this is not something you realize overnight, right? When you're unpicking yourself from the old systems, right? This is many years of personal work and understanding and research, right? So I just want to honor that, Trina, and say thank you for sharing so generously.
I don't really do my work to make a lot of money to profit. Sure, if it comes, it flows, because I believe abundance comes to you when you live in abundance in your mind, body, and spirit. Okay? Abundance does not mean huge amounts of wealth. Abundance means you have what you need. Okay? And if I can live at a level of getting what I need to support myself and my son, I am a single mom, then that is enough for me. I'm not into the luxury, though I believe I deserve it. I'm not into like, it's not my goal to live this. I think everybody could live a luxurious life if we took out the hegemonic forces creating scarcity. They're creating scarcity.
Yes, this is a really important point, right? By design.
By design. Because how can they make their profit if they're not, if there's an abundance of water? One of the biggest lies that I always pisses me off and is it's caused, of course, yet another health issue is plastic. No, this is glass. Plastic bottled water. That is seeping into the water, that's seeping into the DNA, that babies are being born with plastic residue in them now because they hoard the well water underneath the surface of the earth and try to say, oh, there's a scarcity. No, it's not. It's a complete lie. I just saw a really interesting documentary about it. There's plenty of water on the surface. It just seems like there isn't because they are diverting it and they're hoarding it and they're using it for mass agriculture and they're polluting it.
This hits hard. Again, it links to mind, body, spirit, body. One of the products I sell goes directly into plastic bottles. Here's an example of the hegemony. It's one of the chemicals that goes into making the plastic bottle. Right?
Okay.
That's how part of I live my life whilst trying to get by in hegemony and imagining being good.
What's the name of the chemical? I'm very curious. I like that.
I will share it with you. It's called purified terephthalic acid, PTA.
That is such a contradiction. Purified acid.
Yeah. It's because the actual resin is called PET, purified. PET is the actual bottled resin. You see it on the back of the plastic bottle. Right. And PTA is one of a number of components that goes into making the PET bottle. So there's a number of chemicals that go into, and the point being, and again, I wrote about this actually a while back. If anyone's interested, I can share the article. But I've been addicted, right? Again, capitalism is a designed addiction. And I have my own version of that addiction, which is Dr. Pepper was one of my things. It's got no nutritional value. It tastes great. It comes in a plastic bottle, and it does nothing for me or the planet or life. Look, if you can't get a better example of manufactured demand and capitalist manufactured demand than that example I just shared with you. I got addicted to it. No nutritional value. Leaves waste plastic. And just fuels further demand. So just an invitation for people, post-hegemonic worlds for me, is we get curious around the daily things that we're doing that actually have a supply chain behind them or a oppressive impact somewhere else in the world. So my invitation is just get really curious about everything. There you go. The headphones I have, the rims around on the glasses that Trina's wearing, the computer that you might be listening to this on, oppression is baked into everything. Hegemonic. And what we're inviting on here is what could that look like in a different pluriversal world? Because we still might need glasses. Yeah, we might still want to use computers. But how do we do that in a just, equitable, fair way that isn't just feeding 1% of people on the planet?
Yeah. Well, what you're saying is what I always try to encourage my clients to do is have a polymathic mind. When you start to learn about all these different aspects, about what you're talking about the history of the world, about the people behind all of these structures, you'll start to see the pattern of oppression. You'll start to see the manipulation. Imagine if everybody had 20/20 vision due to the fact that the soil was clean, the carrots were pesticide free, the soil was full of the minerals and nutrients that needed to help your body absorb and have that 2020 vision and live a longer, more productive, strong life. You know, what if we didn't have to worry about body image so much because we were looking on the internal aspects of people and how they treat you and how we treat each other? You know, what if we were more mindful on how we procreate, you know, instead of just, you know, doing it to replace the feelings of inadequacy. I'm talking about males in particular, you know, the feelings of inadequacy because you can't compete in this structure that is created, that your whole purpose, you know, we live in slavery.
And that for me is a wonderful invitation, Trina, is for people to realize that plantations, whether it be palm oil plantation, any other plant, coca plantation, if you're like me and you work in a box or you work in a corporate space or even in a business in the West, you are working in the plantation economy of the mind. So the invitation post-hegemonic worlds is you can choose to work there. I choose to work in my corporate space because I've got a mission to try and disrupt it from the inside out. So that's my choice as Garry. Your choice may be different, but my invitation is hear what Trina's sharing, hear what we're discussing as invitations, curiosity, because these systems are Western plantation systems. They're not corporate cultures, organizational design, learning development. They are plantation cultures. And it's really important, I think, that we understand that, Trina.
Yeah. They're not families. We're all one big family here. Oh, come be a part of our family. Because they will cut you out the moment they get the desire or a better candidate or you say or do something that they don't like.
I've got a story, if I may share it with you and everybody.
Of course.
Trina, Pfizer, biggest pharmaceutical company on the planet, COVID-19 vaccine, made billions, employed loads. They're shedding staff like crazy now because they're not meeting the numbers that they said they'd meet. So 2 years ago, it's all about COVID and saving everybody. Now they're cutting hundreds, if not thousands of people. 500 down the road from me in the UK. 500 human beings and their families wiped out with barely a breath. 2 years ago, it's all about the vaccine. We're going to save the world. This is hegemony playing out in real time. And that's what we've got to imagine beyond, people. That's what we've got to imagine beyond.
Yep. And why are those numbers going down? Yeah. Because everybody is waking up to the lie of it. You know, there's more and more evidence coming out that it was just a sham. And, you know, I mean, I literally lost family members because I refused. I said, it doesn't feel right to me, mind, body, or spirit. I was educated enough and curious enough to dig in and say, okay, well, I'm going to have to orchestrate my life in a particular way. So this is not going to be the path I take. And it wasn't easy, but I'm surely glad I am because I know my body and I know how things respond in my body. I pay very close attention to it. And I think I got COVID maybe once, if that's what it was. And I got over it, you know? And I also heard some madness that the people who did take the shot are now no longer, because it was a DNA altering, RMA. Yeah, RMNA. Yeah, it's some new technology. See, that's why you got to be curious. That supposedly that people who took the shot are no longer considered human. And therefore can't have the same rights as human beings do.
Oh, by the way, you can't have healthcare either.
Oh, that too. You can't have healthcare. And also, if I get sick because of it, I can't sue you because they took that away about good 10, 15 years ago. There used to be protections for vaccine harm, and in the US in particular, and they legislated that away. So, well, you got to take it, and you can't do anything about it if you get sick.
There's oppression leading to depression in a nutshell, Trina, right?
Right, exactly. And so there's all of these things that, are so fear driven that if you had taken a moment to just sit with your mind and everything that you've been taught, and then sit with your body and go, ooh, this feels this way, and then sit with your spirit, everybody would probably made different choices and it wouldn't have worked.
I don't know about you, but I'm loving that we're in this space of looking beyond hegemony now. It's bringing a real different energy.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I loved the energy before because it was fiery. It was we
needed,
gotta
right?
see.
It was
It's
needed.
needed. It is, and it's still needed. There's still people out there that need to do. But I really want to build. What does it look like? Having mind, body, spirit alignment. Okay, this is what it was. This is what it can be. Okay, and if we start looking at these systems of oppression for what they really are, a few people puppeteering the masses, and we just make very conscious choices. Listen, do I need this? I love what you just said about what you watch, and I'd love for you to drop the link in the chat for that discussion. Do I need this versus do I want it? What's lacking in myself to make me think something that is so frivolous and is needed? Am I going to die if I don't have it? We all have just really basic needs, and those basic needs are actually being stolen from us every single day, and we don't have to stand for it.
Excuse me, just doing a quick type, Trina, and everybody. I'm literally popping the link in the chat right now. It really was such a powerful conversation.
Yeah, and we need to also remember what you put into your mind. Well, I always say, what entertains you enters you to attain an effect. And we got a whole industry of fear-based and violence-based. I can't even tell you. You can't even play a video game or anything or watch a video without some subliminal messaging about how you're not worthy, or this person's not worthy, or we got to blow this shit up, or the aliens coming and they're going to take the planet. They're already here, in my opinion. So
and they've taken the planet, past tense.
yeah, past tense. That's how I feel. We've been tinkered with for millennia. So now we just gotta learn the history. I always feel like there's a concerted effort to blow up places that have truth, that have evidence of truth. I know Israel and Palestine, this conflict has gone on for a long time, but I also know where it is, based in one of the most important historical places in the world as far as truth. I think that maybe 2 years ago, they had just found hundreds of sarcophagi of Roman royalty right on the border of Egypt and Palestine. Boom, 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 boom. During Iran-Iraq war, the first thing that was bombed was the museums. and the evidence of who humanity is, where we come from. You destroy the evidence, you control the narrative. And it's old. They blew up the Romans destroyed Alexandria, stole what they could, and then it was gone.
This is
And I
important.
wouldn't,
It's important.
yeah,
Trina.
yeah. I wouldn't know this unless I got very curious. I'm curious in history. I'm curious in archaeology. I'm curious in science. I'm curious in the mind, neuroscience. I'm curious about all of these things. And so we all have that capacity to be a suppository of knowledge. This is why they murdered the Aboriginal people, the storytellers, the verbal storytellers, because maybe they didn't write, but they passed on their stories and they had to cut that out. Cut the truth, control the narrative.
And what a beautiful invitation for us all. As Sahana, our co-host, always beautifully says, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have an opportunity to co-create new narratives. And that's what
Mm.
we're doing, hopefully, with our explorations here. It's a reminder. And I love what you said previously, Trina. It's almost a phase of remembering. We're remembering that we have self-worth. We're remembering we are enough. We are remembering that before anything outside of us, we are valid.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's a good spot to end our discussion today.
Amazing. Thank you for guiding us, Trina.
Pleasure. I'm looking forward to the next discussion where we dig a little bit deeper on this. But also how everything connects to the next thing. The dots always connect. And one of the things is that if you get to a place where you learn, you love, you walk in integrity, you cultivate an inner knowing that's already there, and you can trust it. But if you don't do all those other steps, you're easily manipulated.
Another great way to finish.
All right. I hope everybody enjoyed this journey today. We are still trying to do this bi-weekly as much as possible. Also, I will be uploading this to the podcast version of this conversation. And please, if you have questions, if you want to become a part of the dialogue and be a guest, reach out to me, Garry, or Sahana. We would love to have you on board and join the discussion, challenge the discussion, reveal whatever is going on with you. We're on this journey collectively, and I want us to vibrate at a higher frequency so that we can change the world.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Trina.
Bye.